Yeah, so this is exciting, personally very exciting for me because I've been involved in manufacturing, testing, even writing patents for metakaolin for over 35 years now. And this is the first chance I've had to design a metakaolin specifically for concrete and building products. So that means we've had a chance to get everything right here. And after 37 years, I may have actually got it right for a change, which is great. So I'm guessing most of you know what metakaolin is, so won't dwell too long on this, but it's from a basic standpoint, all we do is you convert kaolin to metakaolin. It's a heating process at about 750 degrees centigrade, so it goes from a fully crystalline material, which is the hydrous kaolin, as is known, and then it becomes, some people call it amorphous, but it's actually not really truly amorphous. It's actually semi-crystalline form. It's called a defect spinel form of kaolin, which is known as metakaolin, and this is reactive. If you calcine it too hot, then you go to a fully amorphous material that won't react. So it's very important to get that reaction, the state of conversion exactly right, and then that can be used directly in concrete. It has been used, as it says there, it's been used for over 2,000 years. I think actually the Greeks discovered it before the Romans, but the Romans certainly used it to their advantage to make very strong concrete, very durable concrete. We've been doing a lot of testing. As you'll see, I'll show you some results, but we've been using a replacement, cement replacement amounts up to, in fact, 60% now, but up to 40%, it's still giving very good results. At 60%, it probably matches GP cement. It's fully validated. We've tested it in probably 100 different mixes now. And also we've had independent verification of the footprint, carbon footprint, which is about just over 200 kilos a ton. So about 80% less than ordinary Portland cement. So that's metakaolin. Just to show you what the advantage is, and again, some of you know these. Metakaolin has been used for over 30 years in concrete to improve durability. So that's normally one of its strong points, but it's always been a bit of a niche product, mainly because it was too expensive. It was always, so the price was always around about $1,000 a ton. So anyone who's going to use it had to be using it sparingly and using it where it was, the performance demanded that use. What we've managed to do is produce a metakaolin that's very economic. So we can compete with cement. So that's an interesting development. As I mentioned before, we've got about 80% less carbon than cement. We're getting some incredible strength increases. And as you'll see in the table coming up next, shrinkage reductions. It will eliminate the alkali silica reaction. We've got testing coming in by the end of this week to give us some numbers on that. It also helps with effervescence control. It improves flexural strength, abrasion resistance. And also, you'll see in the picture there was a trial we did recently at Holcim's biggest batching plant in Brisbane, where we were demonstrating the fact that it can reduce the problem of heat differential in high volume concrete. So we've got some very good results for that demonstration. And in fact, we are going to be repeating that next week with an even higher replacement of cement, because the results for that particular trial were too good. It was just too strong at a 40% replacement. So we're now going to 50% replacement on that in that particular test week after next. This is probably what you're mainly interested in seeing. So what we are here is a typical design, super workable concrete, normally about 40 MPa. So it's 400 kilos of cement in per cube of concrete. So see what we've done there is we've used a GP control and a GL. So that's the approximately 14% limestone cement control. Then we've done replacements with AusPozz at 20%. We've added 20% as a slurry because it forms a very nice slurry, about 70% solids. So that's another way to use it. The blue ones are for GP, and the green ones, the green columns there, are for GL. And then for the GL, we decided to go a bit higher. We went to 30% and 40% of a replacement. So hopefully you see my mouse here. What we did was we kept the water cement ratio the same. Metakaolin is renowned for having a higher water demand normally, and that's usually because it's made too fine for concrete. It's usually made for other applications, but used in concrete, so it means the water demand's high, and that does give some problems. Well, we've designed our AusPozz with the optimum particle size, which is has a D50 of about 20 microns, which means the water demand is actually not that bad. So it doesn't need a lot more water. In fact, in this case, we didn't need any more water at all. We kept that at 0.49. The test work we did here, we kept the water the same. Then we measured the initial slump. You see there that there was a much lower slump for the AusPozz. It dropped from 70 mil down to about 25 mil. Then what we did was we adjusted to get the final spread the same by using admixture. So we brought them all back to exactly the same spread by just adjusting the admixture. Then if you look down the results, and the first ones highlighted there in yellow, point those out that this wasn't just a one-off test. We actually did this 7 times. So these results here represent 7 different mixes and 7 different testing regimes. So we got a consistently around about 28. So looking at the 56-day strength here, which has been highlighted, about 60 MPa, which is pretty typical for 400 kilos of cement. But then going across with the AusPozz, well, we jumped up to 80, above 80, 85 even, for a 20% replacement. That even stayed very high, going to right across the board, GL and GP. It dropped down a bit at 30% and 40%, but we're still well above both the GL and the GP cement. So even at 40% replacement, we're getting a strong strength gain. And also shrinkage, around about 800 for both of the standard cement grades, but then dropped down to right across the board, dropped down to the 500s. So a very good reduction in shrinkage as well. And also we just did one test for modulus, and that was probably just a reflection of the increase in strength. There was also a fairly high jump in the modulus strength as well. So some very interesting results there. We never expected to get such high strength gain and such low shrinkage. So that's just I think that's just an effect of making sure that we engineered this AusPozz material exactly right for concrete. And in fact, we got such a high purity kaolin feed. This kaolin that we use as our feed, which comes from Queensland, is probably the purest I've seen anywhere in the world as a naturally refined kaolin out of the ground. And that converts directly to pozzolanic reactivity, which is what we're seeing there. I just dropped in a couple more slides. As it's a technical audience here, this is another one where we looked at directly replacing silica fume, because quite a lot of people would like to replace silica fume if they could, but usually you do lose some strength or lose other properties. Well, we just did a strength test here for a 32 MPa spray mix, a shotcrete mix. So we just dropped out 20 kilos of silica fume, put in 20 kilos of AusPozz. And here we've got, again, water cement ratio the same. And we actually got a higher strength. So not a large amount higher, not the jump we saw with the previous work, but it certainly was higher. So that was a good result. Probably worth mentioning here that we also did some accelerated demand on these tests. We made some round panels up. We found out that the accelerated demand dropped from about 36 liters per cube down to about 11 liters per cube of accelerator to get exactly the same strength gain. So that was interesting, because that indicates that there could be some very significant cost savings in the accelerator by using AusPozz, as well as making it lower carbon. Final slide on results here. This is results from that hot box test. You saw the picture in the first slide. What we did here was the mix design here, see we had 180 kilos of cement, 120 of AusPozz in those two. We increased it a bit here. So it's 40% replacement in each case. We just changed the amount of binder there. This is a typical design that was given to us for wind farm bases. So we try to base our work on this wind farm design, but it's applicable to any large volume pores. So if I go right down to look at the strength gain, well, the strength gain, we're looking at pretty much equivalent GP versus, well, in fact, we didn't have a standard GP here because the mix was, we just put AusPozz in all three. But you see here, the strength was matching what we needed. 30 MPa was the target, this one. So we're up at 28 days, 50, 60 MPa. And also shrinkage, some very good shrinkage results, even less than 500 here. But the key here was to try and get the strength, the temperature differential down in this work. So what we saw here was, look at the bottom versus the core. Well, the temperature differential was actually stayed quite small. We're talking about a maximum here about 47, 48 degrees versus the core. So that's the core versus the bottom about 36, 37 degrees. So a very small temperature differential. That was still higher than we wanted. So the work we're doing now is going to be a 50% AusPozz. We think that should give us a temperature differential of around about 4 degrees only between the core and the bottom, as well as meeting the other requirements. So that's the technical work. Just quickly tell you a bit about the project, because a lot of people want to know, well, when's this going to be available? How much is going to be available? We have got a very large deposit. Our resource at the moment is about 14 million tons of the high purity feed required for AusPozz production. But that 14 million tons is only 5% of our land holding there. So we plan to drill out a lot more of that over the next 2 months, 2 or 3 months. We'll be drilling that out, and we're going to spread that out. And there's indications are that there should be multiples of that 14 million tons. So no shortage of material. It's open in all directions. The mine site area, you see on the map here, it's hard to see, but it's just inland from Bundaberg, so it's near to a deep water port. And here we have a piece of land that we've been negotiating with Gladstone Ports Corporation. So we've got an LOI signed for this piece of land, which is outlined in blue. So the plan is to put the first of many, or maybe 2 or 3 kilns here. The first kiln will be producing about 300,000 tons a year of AusPozz. And here you see that it can be loaded directly onto ships. There's a conveyor belt here. There's a shed here that could possibly be used. So there's all sorts of opportunities to get it onto ships here for in bulk or in break bulk or in containers. We've got a BW approved route from the mine site to the port, so no issues there. We've got an approved mining lease. We own the land freehold, so there's no impediments to getting started here. Commercial pathways. So right now we are looking at selling some of the ore. Now this ore could be used as a feed for making metakaolin, but because it's such high purity kaolin, there's a market there to be used for things like coatings, inks, paints, and areas where there's some, and cosmetics where there's some quite high value. So we plan to sell some of a DSO. Short term, we want to get into production with the AusPozz. So we want to build our plant, start producing our 300,000 tons of train 1. That will be used as a SCM into concrete plants. And then medium term, what we'd really like to do is to get it blended into the cement as in with a clinker. So get it right back at source. So if we can get it blended into cement, that'll be our final end game achieved. And that'll be there's an opportunity there for someone to make a very low carbon footprint cement, but not only that, it'll be a very high performance, low carbon cement. So just finishing off, at the moment, we've got an MOU in place with Holcim. So we are working with Holcim and collaborating on commercializing this as quickly as possible. We also got a grant from the Queensland government for our pre-feasibility study. The pre-feasibility study, a lot of work going on that space right now, and we will be releasing that before the end of the month. So that's going to be the first metrics of the project coming out before end of the month. So it's a big milestone this month for us. We've got testing now going on, in fact, in over 80 different companies now, mainly in Australia, but also around the world. We've had some significant international interest because it's such low carbon footprint, such high performance, and it's also economic. We could in theory ship this to Europe or America and still undercut the current market and make money. So a lot of work going on in that space. We just employed a full-time concrete specialist. He's a 30-year veteran in the concrete industry who was doing independent work for us. He was so impressed by what he saw. He said, first of all, he said, I want to get paid in shares and I want to join your company. So he now has joined us on Monday. So what we can do now is anyone who wants to do work with us, we send him in and he'll hold people's hands right through the testing process. He's done over 100 mixes himself. He's done 6 months testing with different admixtures, so he knows how to use AusPozz. He knows how to optimize it, and he's a really top-notch commercial guy. We've got the third-party sign-off for the CO2 footprint, so that was a major achievement. We're currently producing 200 tons at a kiln, so if that goes to plan, then we'll be using that in some large-scale trials. As I mentioned before, our pre-feasibility is due out this month, so very close now. And then we hope to move towards some binding offtakes. We've got a lot of work going on in areas where we are moving close to binding offtakes. I didn't mention precast, but we're getting some superb results in precast concrete. And there's a couple of companies there that look like they could be signing up with us pretty soon. So I hope I explained that well, and thanks for listening to that presentation.